Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'd like to start the board meeting, so a call to order.
Mrs. Cropos.
Here.
Mrs. Levatek.
Here.
Mrs. Lamb.
Here.
Mrs. Rowe. Here. Mrs. Bergen.
Here.
Mrs. Schroeder. Here. And Mr. Medina.
Okay, so pledge of flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Introduction of guests.
Yes, well, welcome everyone. We pretty much have our whole admin team here. Jeff Youngberg is over at Colmar School running the girls and guys volleyball game for the conference. It's their all-star game. So he is over there, and I believe we have Christina Ashley here from Korea. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, so 2.0, approve the consent agenda. This is the minutes from meetings and some financial reports. Did you read all that? No?
Nope.
Just looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
A second.
Mr. Medina.
You want to-
Mrs. Rowe.
Okay, let's
Mrs.
get that.
Bergen. Hi.
I'll let you know.
Hi. Mrs. Lamb.
Aye.
Mrs. Levatek.
Aye.
And Mrs. Cropos.
Aye, 3.0 is the superintendent's report.
Yes, well, again, good evening. We're going to jump right in. We have our PTA report. Last month we did our bingo night. I know we had some people here. I got to call a few games, and then I had to run to a Lions Club meeting and to interview Trinity students, but it was very well attended. The PTA this year has been shifting some of the events from Friday to Thursday night, just seeing kind of what the attendance is going to be. And if it's any, from what the bingo was, it was very successful. There were a lot of seats, a lot of good prizes given out. And then we have a meeting coming up on Wednesday, the 16th at Ridge Lawn at 5 p.m. That's our next PTA meeting. And then the next night is movie night. They're also trying something a little bit different this time. They are going to show the same movie at two locations. It will be at Ridge Central and at Ridge Lawn. They're going to show Inside Out 2. They have a feeling it's going to be pretty well attended because it just came out recently. They're just making some tweaks on a few things on some events that have gone well and just seeing what it's going to look like. So we're excited for that. Next, 3.2 is our enrollment report. Last month I shared with you that we are up quite a few students. We are up 51 students from this time last year and have increased 19 more students than last month. So we are right now at 1,484 students. It's been a while since we've been at 1,500, but we're only 16 students away from that. I know at one point in my first year or two here, we were down in the 1,300. So we are definitely seeing an enrollment increase. I've shared with the board before that that's a little bit different than we're seeing in a lot of other surrounding areas. So we're just going to keep watching it. Second grade, especially, the buildings are very, very high. And so we're kind of watching that number to see if we have to add any help in there. But those are some really high numbers right now. So 3.3 school department reports. Hopefully you had a chance to kind of look that over, but again, a lot of different things going on. There were pictures from bingo night. I know Megan's going to talk about the after school activities, I think, in her other later. We also had, I had shared with the board, we had a visit from the South Korean Broadcasting Company to work with and film over at Finley, the SEL lessons that they're doing. I guess in South Korea, they don't do SEL at all and are really looking to gather information as a country to see if that's something they're going to move forward with. So that was a really nice honor that we had. There's also pictures in there. Our band was invited to go play with Richard's band at the football game, and also the adult EL classes that have been really, really successful. So just some of the things that we have going on in there beyond academics. I also 3.4 vacant positions and possible staffing needs. We still have the same ones that we've been looking for a while. You'll also see in our later on, we have a resignation from here at the district office. So we're going to be looking for that benefits and Kathy's secretary. And then we're still looking for a curriculum director secretary as well. 3.5, I had a chance to go down to Springfield. Now it's already been a week and a half ago. It's always a very important time to go down, not only to go to the sessions, but to really be able to talk to the superintendents from around the state and from our area. I was able to have lunch with a group of like 10 of them from our area. And a lot of our discussions, unfortunately, have been over the safety threats and those types of things, but it's really good to see where we are in comparison and to grab some new ideas. I also went to a session on cybersecurity, which we don't talk about very often, but that costs millions of dollars if that happens and you don't have the right insurance and the right things put in place. And then I went on what I consider one of the worst titled professional developments of getting on the positivity bus But it was an excellent session, and I usually try to be pretty positive, but it kind of reinforces why you do that and how the impact that has on everyone. So just thank you to the board for continuing to support me going down there. I know me being out of the district for 3 days isn't always ideal, but we're able to get quite a bit out of that. Speaking of conferences, the next one, 3.6, is the Triple I Conference for downtown. And that is, it looks later than it usually is because Thanksgiving is so much later this year, but it's November 22nd through the 24th. We shared out kind of the updates with the conference that shows the sessions. Hopefully, I know I don't really start looking really closely till I get that app because I can go through it very easily. They also gave the resolutions committee report. This year we have Chrissy as the delegate with Joy being the alternate. I would recommend if you get a chance to look through that, it's in your packet, but over the next week, if there's any ones that you don't necessarily understand or agree with what they're recommending, bring that so we can talk about it in our study session. If you could tell me ahead of time, I can throw that on the agenda, and then we can decide as a board how we want to vote.
I feel like last year, me as a new president, I was unfamiliar. It was kind of like a locked secret key, so I didn't fully vet it out with everyone and discuss it. So if you want to look at it, I feel like Adam and I had talked about it seemingly close to the time, and just looking at it for the votes and whatnot. And I brought back the information in post, but I would love to have the conversation pre so that everyone can be a part of the process in the voting and how we vote as opposed to just me.
Yep, great. And then I just 3.7, I did last night have the opportunity to go to my first Worth Township Treasurers meeting. So thank you for Kathy for getting kicked off after she got voted on. It lasted an hour and a half, and we're doing well financially in terms of the township. But there was one other interim superintendent on there, one board president, and 10 business managers. So it was
Party
fine.
people.
Yes, but I was excited that they moved the meetings now from 6 p.m. till 4 p.m. moving forward. So I will not make fun of it anymore, and I'll go and bring back information. So that's all I have, and I will turn it over to Kathy.
It's other, and then it's curriculum director report.
Go ahead, Megan.
So 4.1, just a fall data review. As you already know, annually our third grade institute, Illinois Assessment of Readiness, we call it IAR. And we have started to receive those results and started as an administrative team looking through those results. I did outline some of the, you can see in the dot points there, some of the growth that we've had as a district, but this information district-wide to share out with the community is under embargo until October 30th. So we won't be able to discuss it in open session or, beyond this point until after that is lifted. However, I did include in your packet the NWEA growth data summaries from kindergarten through 8th grade. I've included, and I hope it appeared at the top, I included last year the 22-23 fall growth and the 23-24 for your comparison. So if you can this is just for an example of some things that I want to remind you of how to look through this data. So the first thing in the red at the very top, if you missed it, is right there. It just shows the term that we're talking about. So fall 22-23, and then comparing it to fall 23-24. Then you have in your report the math and then the language arts or reading. So you want to make sure that when you're comparing math to math and reading to reading. And then I really look at, when I'm looking at this data, this school conditional growth index. And what you'll notice as you're reviewing these reports is that for math specifically last year in the school conditional growth, we only had 2 grade levels that mapped that growth target. But this year we only had 3 that didn't meet that growth target in that school. So that just in general kind of gives a quick summary and a quick visual view of the work that those teachers, those building administrators, and the implementation of that resource, and what we're seeing in results. And then we also look at the percentage of students who met the growth. So it's important to know that the 2 things that I'm referring to specifically are growth. It's the growth of the students. It's not the achievement level of the students. So it's just a different resource that we use. Growth and trending growth is really important for us to look at, of that, keeping that call to make sure that kids are in fact growing. We use IAR data, which I'll share out more at the study session, and we'll talk more in the future about once that embargo is lifted. That gives us really more of that grade level achievement.
tells us where those students are compared to where they're supposed to be in the grade level. So the far right shows the percentage of students who met growth projections. So as you know, if you've had a student who's taken the MAP score, or a child that has, students are given growth projections from fall to winter and winter to spring. And so we look at that to make sure that they're continuing to grow. One thing that I'd like to highlight your attention to is for the math, we had more students in every single grade level grow and meet that growth projection this year than from like last year they were here and now they're growing in every single grade level. So a big highlight there. And we've talked about these at the bottom here. The diamond is the grade level norm projected growth. The blue bar is what our students, the observed growth of each grade level. We don't see kindergarten because they don't have any growth data. They just took this assessment for the first time in the fall, but we'll start to see growth data as they take that benchmark in the winter and the spring. So this is just a visual for you to help look at better and dive deeper into those comparison data. Again, like I said, I shared both because I think it is important to celebrate the growth. Overall at the buildings, the building administrators and teacher leaders and teacher teams are doing a lot with this data. They're looking at not only MAP data, they're looking at IAR data. They're now able to look at actual common assessment data with IM, the illustrative math resource, and now the HMH unit assessment. So it's really module assessment. So they're really able to triangulate this data and have a better understanding of where the students are at or what they need to be doing. And that's a lot of work that the buildings are having for those conversations with those teacher teams. And then as a district, we're going to continue to implement the ELA resource, HMH, continue to provide professional development, follow up with those teacher teams as a district-wide support, and then the implementation of IM. And I know the math coaches at the elementary are working really hard with their building administrators on the math side as well. Any questions on this?
Yeah, we can't talk about it. though,
You
correct?
can talk about the map data.
Okay,
You can't talk about the bulleted data that I shared in this.
so there was a significant dip for language arts for
Yes.
fourth to fifth. Now, is that going back to what curricularly was being taught in between the 2 years? I don't know, because it just seemed odd. And it's just like that fourth to fifth grade, so not like what, I mean, I know that we have transitioned into a new ELA kind of platform, but I mean, it was just, I mean, like when I looked at the data earlier, I was like, oh, that's that one level, what's missing there? Like, what's going on in that
Yeah.
dip? And before, I remember we talked about like, you know, like there was dips for reasons in certain areas because the kids weren't getting the test read out loud and it was a different test. So I didn't know, I figured you had noticed it, obviously,
Yes.
like, and so I assumed that you had thought about it or pondered it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, and I want to just, the test being read aloud, the data that we receive is compared to norm data of all of the students who take it.
Yeah,
So that, we can't really settle on that being the reason why our students, because then that whole data norm would be lower, because that would be in comparison to every third grader or every sixth grader or every fifth grader, right? But we do talk about that. Dr. Thorns and I met last week and we talked about this, kind of just summarizing it overall. And then that ELA is something that we want to really look at to determine within those grade levels, what's that implementation looking like? What is the feedback that we're receiving from that unit assessment or that module assessment to determine, okay, what do we need to intervene with, or how can we work on strengthening that core instruction? Is there something we need to do differently instructionally? Like, do we need to change our instruction and consider that? Do we need to think, in planning purposes, and all of that? So it is
Yeah.
a big conversation.
it definitely, I mean, it's just like under the star as opposed to being over, which
Yeah.
is, it's interesting
Yeah.
that it was so significant, so.
Yeah, and what that's telling us is that diamond is where we wanted students, and so our students fell below that growth. It didn't meet the growth target, which we would constantly want to be growing and exceeding.
Yeah,
Definitely. So we're having further conversations at the October study session. Just diving a little bit deeper on what we've been doing in these areas of ELA and math. Looking at that data a little bit closely and instructionally what we are planning to do as a district to move forward.
thanks.
Yeah,
Let's break it down by
schools? Because it's like by the district, so like, I'd be interested just to see how that.
Sure. Yeah, so under that same report that you have in your hands, you can get one specific to each building. The way that I presented it was just the district wide. And then the buildings have then all the way broke down to like by classroom, by grade level, by classroom, things like that. But that's something that I can definitely get to you as the grade level or the school reports. So that you can see that as well.
Well, and plus too, I mean, I think everything will be different next year though, because we have such a standardized curriculum now in a sense that every stakeholder is hitting the same kind of goals that we're setting out there. And with this new thing that we bought, hopefully if some targeted lessons aren't being hit in one building or another, or the communication wasn't a little bit muddied, now it'll be cleared up since we have you and you are implementing and we're helping them out to do it. So maybe there was just some targets that weren't hit or learning targets that didn't get met or something
Sure.
at that level last year. So, I mean, even next year, we might have some skewing as we're adjusting to the curriculum, but then see a strong growth 2 years from now because they're being more, it's more rigorous.
Yeah.
They're being challenged more because we're trying to hit those.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, as a district, shared out guidance with the staff, because the curriculum resource that we adopted is so robust with options and options and options. And the admin team, myself, we really looked through what components do we want the teachers to implement so there is that consistency within each grade level, across the district's grade levels, and then across the district K-8. And to support the teachers too, so they don't have to spend so much time picking through and finding things, but that they can use these resources specifically. So we hope that just that guidance and that resource and the implementation of that resource, everyone is using HMH into reading or into literature. We're really hoping that scores results in that implementation, but typically in curriculum, when we implement something, it does take at least 3 years to
Yeah.
start. We usually see a dip. And then we usually start to see it come back up after years of implementation because the first year is that kind of fumbling through that resource, learning that it's a learning curve. That's a very nice way. It's a learning curve of resource. It's a learning curve for the teachers. It's a learning curve for the administrators, for the district office directors. It's also a learning curve for the students. And that's something we have to consider.
I mean, too, I think it's great to hear that you're doing that because when you and I had met during strategic planning, I mean, that was before you were the curriculum director and we had that conversation. Do the teachers know the standard learning targets that you guys have broken down? And that's where it starts, like what our district focuses on, because Common Core has a plethora of standards and every teacher can't meet everyone every year. So now that is more accessible to teachers, I'm assuming that's what's fueling what you're deciding within the HM, and then that's what's going into the lesson. So hopefully it's all aligning now with your guidance.
Yeah, and a lot of work still left to do. There's a lot of uncovering. Teachers are implementing and they're like,
Well,
we
first
found
year's
this.
trial and error.
We
you know?
found this resource. Oh, this is such a great resource. Have you thought about that? And they're bringing, because they're the ones who are the implementators, the experts in this implementation, they're bringing such good feedback to the administrators. And then we're collectively having that conversation. Oh, we didn't know this was available. Okay, this kind of answers that question of, wait, we didn't consider this, or, oh, we needed this. And so they're coming to us with so many great things. And it's really that team effort to continue to build that out and make things, to your point, very clear so that we can then all support each other moving forward. But there's still work we want to do. We were talking
Yeah.
about it even at our admin team today about standards and essential standards and all of that.
It'd be nice at the end of the year to have like a breakout session, one of the final institute days, when in April or whatever, to go over like pros and cons,
Yeah.
what worked and what didn't.
Gotcha.
You know, across the schools, because I'm sure the 4th grade team at Lawn is not always meeting up with the 4th grade team at Central. I mean, you know, passing periods is sometimes when teachers can talk, so I get it. So I would say that would be a good idea, but thank
Yeah.
you for answering my question.
Yeah, in this last early dismissal, we did do all K-5 teachers across the district came together and they sat kindergarten teachers across the district, and we just gave them that time, almost an hour, to just talk it out. And there were a lot of questions and not concerns, but concerns of unknowns that were brought to our attention. And there was a note taker in each one of those, and that was all shared and compiled. So we'll kind of check those off as we can get through them. But what I think was the greatest takeaway was that they were able to share and get some things out of that conversation with their colleagues. And that was something that they gave us feedback from the first Institute Day that I filled out an evaluation, and many of them have responded, we just want time with our grade level team to be able to work through
Best
some of
practice,
this.
share best practice, come
Right.
up with ideas.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why is there an embargo in place?
So the,
Thanks.
but so I can answer it, or I don't know. because I
No,
can talk to
you
some
answer,
others.
because I can't
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah,
it.
basically, the state gives the scores to all the schools and like where you fall in terms of what your ranking is. And then they have to look for all their mistakes.
Yeah.
So they give it to us and then we are not allowed to publicly share till the end of October, when they will release it to the news and then we can share it publicly.
It wasn't a we problem, that's what I was.
Okay.
Like, what do you do?
The thing that I like about this, what's happening here is the fact that there's a lot of leverage between everybody and that the teachers feel that they can come to the administration and be able to get a give and take with the whole situation as opposed to, here's the curriculum, see you later, good job. You know what I mean? And I think that's great in listening to them, and they're coming back and they feel that they can do that, because there was a time here that it wasn't as well received. You know what I mean? But I
Sure.
feel like you're getting a lot more,
Well,
especially with them all being there.
I'm even just to have the curriculum accessible and understanding it. When we did the strategic planning, teachers said, some teachers had indicated, I don't even know where I can find the standards that have been copiously sought out and picked through. And Megan discovered that when we were at this table at the strategic planning meeting for the district's plan. And so that was like the start of all of this, I believe. And
Yes,
now,
black hole of the Google Drive.
yes.
All linked in the Google Drive.
And she's like, oh, it's all there. And I mean, like, that now it is, now we're, I feel like
Everybody's
moving in
aware and
such a
everybody
great
can
direction,
work with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of work with bringing in Kelly Dobek, who I talked about. She's sharing a lot of information regarding research practice, evidence-based practices, so that it's not, we're really considering what is the knowledge we know now about what is that best practice, what's the evidence, and why we're doing what we're doing. And so that's, I think, very helpful in those conversations with teachers as well, and with us, to try to better understand of what we're doing and why are we doing it.
Well, I think it also helps too, in the sense that like, when kids get into a certain class, it's like, oh, this teacher does this, or this teacher's easy or hard. It becomes like they want to pick, and it's not that. Teachers still have academic freedom. They can teach it however they want. They can have their own classroom philosophies, but we all have the same goal. We're all, UBD, having the same higher learning target and getting there. And so I think that makes that level of consistency where, well, you might have Miss XYZ, but in Miss JK's class, it's the same things.
Right.
So I feel like that is an important thing.
Okay, 4.2, I do have another.
Yeah.
I did want to just bring back the conversation about after school academics and activities, and I'll share numbers on behalf of the buildings and the districts, but really all of this work is done at the building level. The teachers are stepping up to host these clubs after school, run academics. They've signed up for Leader in Me. The administrators at the building are the ones who are doing all of the enrollment and the rosters and communication to parents. So I'm just sharing the numbers, but thank you to those of you and the administrators and the teachers who've done all of this work for it. But currently across the district, we have 427 students in after school activities. I know specifically at Ridge Central, they have about 50% of their student population in Wednesday activities. So
There's waitlist.
it's a
Junior tutors, man.
So activities is in full swing. I know Dr. Lawrence had shared out the total student enrollment. So when you think about, having over 400 students in these after school activities, it's a wonderful opportunity to get those kids engaged and be a part of that school community. We do have after school academics happening at the elementary buildings. We have 215 students that are staying after on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the elementary schools for academics. Again, that's a huge number of students who are getting that extra support for that time after school. And then for Leader in Me, the Leader in Me program, we have over 130 students that have been brought in to this new opportunity. They also meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays with their facilitators. And it's just a wonderful opportunity, such great vibes. I actually run into some parents who, I sent the letter out to them, kind of explaining the program, and the application was sent out to parents, and so they stopped me and said, my child got, accepted into the Leader in Peace program, and so it's just a really great opportunity. And again, thanks to the administrators, because that is an additional activity for them that they have to, gather those rosters and do all that. Yes.
Bruno in the third grade said the after school activities are canceled tomorrow because of picture day. I just wanted to clear up that they do that.
I would suggest you reach out to your building administrator. That question, because that's not something that I.
In gym class, I was told there was no gym class. Okay.
So no rumors.
Yeah, don't listen to rumors.
We're on the second grade street, third grade street. Well, they probably heard it from a second grader.
Fingers match, you spread rumors.
Listen, her parent did not turn in the form early enough, so she's to be mad at the presidents. I like that. All the rules are followed, okay? President forgot to put it in the folder.
And I'm done.
Thank you. Kathy, I hope it's as exciting as after-school activities.
Not nearly. I'm just warning you. Just two real quick things this evening. 5.1 is the list of contracts over $25,000 that are in your board packet. We are mandated by the state to share that with the public as well as putting it on our website. And then we do have another, if you remember back in May, we applied for, through the U.S. Department of Justice, the COPS grant, they call it, and it's a school violence program. And we applied for it a second year in a row to enhance our door access to our classrooms, to limit access. And unfortunately, we did not get that grant again. And looking at, and keep in mind, it's a US department, so it is all of the United States. There were a handful of districts in Illinois that received it. Oakland Hometown down the street was one, so that is good news. And then the other one, there was one, Will County. So we will certainly, all the work has been done. It's just a matter of paperwork. We will certainly try again next year, but unfortunately, we were not awarded that.
And I will say, I don't know how many applied this year, but I know last year, I think it was over 500 districts in Illinois applied and 18 got something. And I think the frustrating part is most of us use the exact same grant writers. So there's a very good chance that Oakland Hometown used the same one, just like Worth did a couple of years ago.
So they're just pulling out of a bucket.
We don't know, and we don't really get good feedback on if there's anything that needs to change, but we will keep applying because it's $500,000 towards that. So that would be a really nice one to get. So,
But that's all I have.
great, thank you. We can actually jump on.
Thanks.
Yeah, and she'll be back next month.
I gotta fill some time. People
Yeah.
wanna stay.
And you can jump all the way down to 10.0.
10.0 opportunity for visitors to speak. Oh. All right, this is the time filler. President's prerogative, 11.0. All right, it's gonna be quick. I just loved hearing the numbers about all the after-school programs. You know, when you look at kids who are excited to see their elementary school teachers, they form these bonds. And there is this push for social emotional learning. But if you guys all think back to like teachers you remember, you're not remembering them teaching you math. You're remembering some kind of connection you had with them. And having these after school programs and kids with different teachers is giving them the opportunity to make a personal connection with a different teacher. And then it's another familiar face in the hall. And it just makes them more vested in the school. And I have a hard philosophy. If you're not involved in something, you'll get involved in something. And so having all these opportunities available for the kids is great because it'll push them to get involved in clubs in the junior high. And then ultimately in high school, be involved in something else. So all these things, all these teachers who are, doing these, I've seen some pictures on social media, these different clubs, which I don't know what's going on, but I like it. Like it is hitting interest levels. And I think teachers are getting to show things that they like and those personal connections. And sometimes when you're in the classroom, there's so much to cover that you can't always have story time. Like my students love if I tell them a weird story about my life, like they like it. But like I can't always have story time. I gotta get the train back on the tracks. And if you're an elementary teacher, it's the same way. If you're off the track, it's hard to pull them back in. And they bond over a year, but it's nice that kids have the opportunity to meet with different teachers. And even if it is in like educational help, like the Tuesdays and Thursdays where it's math help. Sometimes you might not get the way math comes from one person, but another person opened that door in your brain. So I just love to hear all of these different things that are going on, these like different connections that are being made. And I just think that the admin and all the staff and everyone who is involved in all these programs really should, you know, give themselves a lot of credit for being willing to like take on an extra role, like being part of the solution, like really helping it to make this school as great as it can be. So that's all. That's it. So 12.0.
It's a lot better than what I get to say. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, however, meeting to consider an increase in compensation with a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the local government wage increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act as defined in the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1. The discussion of collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or the representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees as described in Section 2C2. The purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired as defined in Section 2C5. In the discussion of minutes of prior meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act as defined in Section 2C21 for the purpose of review, approval, or release of such minutes. We will not be discussing any security or student discipline during this meeting or imminent or probable litigation.
Joanna made the motion. Was there a second? Thank you.
Mrs. Schroeder. Aye. Mrs. LeBlanc.
Aye.
Mrs. Lambert.
Aye.
Mr. Medina.
Aye.
Mrs. Rose. Aye. Mrs. Bergen.
Aye.
Mrs. McDonald.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks everyone for coming.